What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Here we are with another reaction. In this, we have my first NHS A&E experience as an American. I was shocked. Before we dive in, if you guys happen to enjoy, please don't forget to smash that subscribe button, give the video a thumbs up, and let's get straight to it.
Today, I thought I would talk about my experience with the NHS so far. Luckily, personally, I have not had any emergencies since getting here. I am dealing with still trying to get my prescriptions from the US transferred to over here. Prescription names and medication names in the States are a little different here due to, of course, trademarks and for-profit healthcare. My first experience with the NHS here was actually when my husband had to go to A&E last December, and for you Americans out there, A&E is the same as the ER in the States. Now, he was dealing with a chest infection, upper respiratory issue, couldn't figure out what it was, but in the middle of the night one night he was having a really difficult time breathing. His father has a history of heart attacks, so to be safe, we decided just to go to the A&E to make sure everything was okay. And luckily, it was. It was really nice to have that peace of mind just to double
I
check
feel
because, as you
that for
know, if
sure.
you're having a heart attack, time is of the essence. Now, we did opt to
Yes,
just take an
every
Uber,
second
call us
counts.
American in that sense. I know that you can call an ambulance here, but the hospital wasn't very far, and it seemed like it was probably the fastest option. Again, as Americans, we're really conditioned never to call an ambulance. You don't know if that ambulance sent will be in network for your insurance. So it's very possible you could get a bill a couple months later for five to $10,000 because the ambulance sent to you wasn't in network. Now, when we got to A&E, he was still waiting on getting his.
And yeah, that's an absolute fact, bro. Yeah, we absolutely, by no means, will call the ambulance because we're not paying that charge. The charge is absolutely insane. It is. I want to know how much it costs the hospital for the ambulance itself, because I feel like in 10 rides it's paid off. 10 phone calls it's paid off.
NIN number in the
How
mail.
much they
While he is a
charge?
British citizen, he had never lived here before, so he didn't have a number yet. This was actually no problem at all at the A&E. He gave them his information and they said they would be able to find that later for him. So when we showed up to A&E compared to the ER in the States, he didn't have to do a mountain of paperwork while he's sitting there in pain. He didn't have to show his insurance card. None of that. It was just treated as an actual medical issue. Now, it was a Saturday night around 1 to 2 in the morning, so the A&E was pretty busy at this time, but he did get through the whole process in probably 4 to 5 hours. It slowed down in time because they initially took him in to check right away that he wasn't having a heart attack. And once that was confirmed by the first round of doctors, due to being triaged, he was not put as a priority issue. Thank goodness, right? Like, thank
Yeah, for
goodness it
sure.
wasn't a heart attack. And it was nice to know that information right away.
Yeah, I'm sure it absolutely was nice to have that peace of mind for sure, and to just not even be afraid to take them immediately to the hospital. Like in the U.S., would you take them immediately if you suspect a heart attack? I hope so. But even if you do, like you're still, even though he's okay, you still be worried about, geez, this is gonna bankrupt us.
They took him to the back and checked his blood pressure and a couple other things. That's where they confirmed there was not an active heart attack going on, and they drew blood. About an hour later, we got his blood results back, and then it was two more times going to the back over the course of the evening to see various doctors and nurses and have tests ran, then just back to the waiting room. I will say in the waiting room, the vibe and the tone is completely different than ERs in the States. People were making small talk. There were people kind of laughing. It was filled with people, but no one looked as depressed as ERs in the States look. In the States, you also sit in the ER for hours. 8 to 10 hours for a non emergency in the ER is not an exaggeration, especially depending on where you're at and the size of the hospital, the size of your city, where the next nearest hospital might be. All of these things affect your wait time. And yes, That is with crazy expensive insurance. Now, people in the ER in the States without insurance tend to be the ones that wait the longest, unfortunately. While that is not
Yep.
legally how it's supposed to go, we all know that's not necessarily going to affect what actually happens. So, after
We all know everything in the States is for profit. You feel me? Almost everything, because I won't say everything. There are people doing nonprofits, but so much in the state is for profit, and then it health is no different. Unfortunately, something that I think should be a right to everyone. It looks out of their privilege to the ones who can afford it, and that's not right.
a few rounds of tests. At the very end of it, around 5, 6 in the morning, the doctor came and spoke to him, and it turned out he had a chest infection. They were able to give him
Oh,
antibiotics right there. He didn't have to go to a pharmacy afterwards or a separate location to get his medications later. Didn't have to show an
really?
insurance card, nothing. He just got treatment and got to go home and rest and recover. Now, I got my NIN number a
What?
couple months ago. Luckily, I haven't really needed anything. I did make an appointment to go talk to my GP about how to get my medications switched over here from the States, which I will admit is going to be a whole process because
I'm making sure my son.
of the way the two medical systems are set up differently and what doctors you see for certain steps to get those diagnoses, and they don't recognize the diagnosis in the States from my general practitioner who is a doctor. It needs to be from a specific type of specialist, which is a little
Mm-hmm.
frustrating. But in terms of
Mm-hmm.
frustration with healthcare, literally the
It's
least frustrating
ridiculous.
healthcare situation I've ever dealt with. Now, I know there's
Oh,
so much
I was gonna say it's ridiculous in the sense here that like you got to go see your your GP, your general practitioner, I guess, because I can't remember what we call it over here. But your main person that you go see for checkups and everything, and then but they can't handle everything, right? But things I feel like they should be able to handle, like I don't know, or things that they said that is in their job title that they can't handle. They say they can't do. They got to send you to a specialist. Well, the specialist can take 2, 3 months. So now I got to wait 2, 3 months, and I got to deal with this issue until I wait for the specialist to be seen. I'll finally get to see the specialist. Specialist is going to do whatever, and then send me back to the general practitioner. It's just like it. That's unacceptable. Dealing with the issue for 2 to 3 months before you can see a specialist is unacceptable to me.
much more to the NHS than my one little experience. And I do plan on digging in and giving a more deep dive coverage of what it's like dealing with the NHS compared to American healthcare. But I just wanted to share one of my first experiences off the cuff dealing with the NHS and what a positive experience it was compared to dealing with healthcare in the States. I had private health care in the States, and because my husband's job offered his insurance through his job, and my job
Hmm.
is freelance, which means there's no employer
You
to
just got to
offer
do
me
your
those
husband.
insurance plans, I was able to get on his plan through his job as my insurance due to being married. They didn't cover mine, it just gave me access to better coverage insurance. Whereas if I was to pay out
Oh.
of pocket as a freelancer, the coverage I would get would be much lower at a higher premium. I did want to
Hmm.
add one little
Okay.
tidbit. I actually grew up in Kentucky with no insurance my entire life. The first time I ever had health insurance was when I was 25. I grew up with a single parent, and my mom owned a video store in the 90s. She only had one employee, so she didn't have insurance plans, not even enough to cover herself. But because she made just $1,000 too much a year, we were unable to access any government
Hmm.
benefits or
Which
subsidies
is
to get access to
insane.
health care. So my mother and I had to just pay out of pocket for any emergency room visits, any doctor's appointments. The only time healthcare would be covered would be if you were in a car wreck. You would at least be able to get that stuff checked out. But when it
That's absolute. See that's unacceptable. A child should not have to grow up without health insurance. Like, come on. Like, as a country, come on. That's that. Yeah, that's just it's just extremely frustrating, man. Like, and for the longest, I didn't have it. I had health insurance growing up, but once I fell off my dad's health insurance, I didn't have it until probably like 3, 4 months ago because of the cost.
Came to having yearly physicals and various tests as a woman as you grow older, all of that I had to pay out of pocket. Now, that experience isn't uncommon, especially when you're from
Mm-mm.
poorer state in the South, which most of the states south of the Mason Dixon line are. The healthcare access is terrible, if not non existent. In my hometown, there were very limited number of general practitioners you could see, and the one that everyone went to with the best reputation literally had posters hung up that said he will not prescribe birth control or Viagra if you are not married. And then there was a lot of religious iconography all in the office. But in this small town, this was your only choice. Kentucky also has a very unique setup when it comes to liability for medical malpractice, which is a very low payout no matter how extreme the case is. So in Kentucky, you end up with a lot of doctors that can't get insurance in other states for their practices because they are not necessarily the most effective doctors, I would say is the nicest way to put it. My hometown has one hospital, and basically every family in town has some horror story dealing with this hospital. Being over here and having access to universal health care, I don't even know how to mentally process it yet. The idea of just making an appointment on a phone app when I'm not feeling well, I'm
Yeah.
gonna have to reprogram myself to actually be more proactive about my health, being
Mm-hmm.
more
Mm-hmm.
preparatory versus more reactionary to when I notice
Mm-hmm.
different things in my health. Now that I don't have to fear if I go to this doctor and then he recommends a specialist, and is that
Mm-hmm.
specialist in my network? And then when I go to that specialist, the test they
Yep.
run, the lab they send it to, is that lab in network? How much will this cost me at the end on top of already having to pay my insurance premiums? And once I get a diagnosis, will I be able to afford the treatment? These are real questions that Americans have to ask every time they use their
Yeah,
health
it's
care that
facts.
they pay a premium for. Don't forget, Americans pay the highest insured costs in the world, yet we have statistically the
How is that
worst
possible?
outcomes. I do plan on
How
doing
is
a
that
deeper dive
possible?
into how the NHS started and the history of it and what a fabulous service it is. If you would like to see those videos in the future, please leave a comment below. Let me know any questions you have about American healthcare. Are you curious how that works out? I know it's a very complicated system. I would do my best to explain the pyramid of American healthcare. And like always, please like and subscribe, press that little bell, and I'll talk to you soon.
That was a great video in which she explained American healthcare very well, and it's just absolutely ridiculous to me that there are children out there without healthcare because their parents make $1,000 extra a year for housing. So does that thousand? Do you think that $1,000 covers 12 months of healthcare for a child and an adult? It's crazy. That's literally like that's I don't know. I don't freaking understand it. Um, but yeah, I would say even with my personal experience when I got healthcare, I went to the my doctor to get seen about and get tested for ADHD because I was having some of the symptoms, and so I ended up seeing them. She recommended me to a specialist. The specialist is like 2.5 says we can set an appointment like 2.5 months out, and I was like, so I just until 2.5 months, I just gotta keep continuing to deal with this. So I went online to online that wasn't in my health insurance, but they were able to see me in like 3 days. They saw me, did the test, diagnosed me. And it was like I got all that done like that fast. Yet going the regular way would have took me almost 3 freaking months. That's unacceptable. That's all we have. You got well, I guess 3 months because that was the specialist in my network. But that's all we got. If you enjoyed, don't forget to subscribe, give it a thumbs up, check out